Hello.
Good morning. We're admitting all of you now. As you'll notice, when you come in, your video is off and your audio is on mute, but you're welcome to turn your video on. We would love to see you. You're welcome to unmute yourself as well if you want to say hello or ask questions. Hi, Laura. I hope you're doing well in the office.
Hi, Mallory. Looking through the names.
Hello. Sorry, I'm on mute right now because I'm eating.
That's okay. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming.
Of course.
Hi, Marie. I hope you are staying well.
Hi.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. We are so excited to be offering a little positive energy and bringing some joy to these times of uncertainty that have us all going a little stir crazy. We are very thankful to be joined by health and lifestyle change coach Hadlee Garrison. She is based in Seattle, but home in Spring Lake with her family, kind of weathering this storm. For those of you that don't know Hadlee, she helps people feel better in their bodies, have more energy on a day-to-day basis, become more confident in themselves, cultivate a better relationship with food, and become less stressed and more joyful in their day-to-day lives. I don't know about all of you, but all of those things would certainly help me be better, feel better right now. So thank you again for coming. We have the chat feature enabled, so if you have questions, you want to participate in some of the activities Hadlee will be doing, use the chat feature or unmute yourself and conversate with us. We would appreciate either one. So now I will turn it over to Hadlee and let her get started.
Yay, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I do want this to be totally interactive. So whenever you have any questions or anything, definitely hop in, and we will also have some things, exercises, things like that to do throughout. So if you have a pen and a journal or a piece of paper or something handy, that would be awesome. I see you have, yep, you got it. So if you have that, or if you're on your computer and you want to type it out, you can totally do that too. Because I'll have you do a little bit of reflecting and then a little bit of sharing based on what we do. So without further ado, I will share my screen, and here we go. So welcome to the workshop. I wanted to talk to you guys today about the fact that there are a lot of emotions that are coming up during this time. We might be having more anxiety, fear, sadness, grief, overwhelm, feeling like we're isolated. All of these things are very prevalent right now during coronavirus, and also during the subsequent impacts that coronavirus is having on our daily life. So I wanted to talk about coping with those emotions, but then also not just coping, but also starting to feel a little bit more purposeful, happy, grateful, connected again, even throughout this time. And then as we go forward with the uncertainty that's going to be coming up in the next few weeks and months and that kind of thing. So the way that I help my clients do these things is through habits and helping them tap into their body's needs, which I hope to help you guys do today with a little bit of information about habits and things that you can implement in your lives, and then also helping you tap into how your body is feeling so that you can then move forward with that knowledge to make the decisions for your body that are going to be optimal for your health and well-being. So a little bit about me, is that I am a health and lifestyle change coach. I went to the University of Michigan for my bachelor's in biopsychology, cognition, and neuroscience, and then a master's in public health in health behavior and health education. And I'm also a certified health coach. And what I do is I help people to kind of design the health and the life that they want and implement the health habits that they need in order to get to that place. So the first question that I have for you guys, and we're going to just do a little bit of reflecting on this, and you can just jot down kind of a bullet list right now about what kinds of emotions have been coming up for you during the pandemic. So, this can be emotions that are pretty prevalent throughout your days. It can be acute emotions, so things that crop up and then dissipate. But we just want to start thinking a little bit about emotions. We're going to talk about both mental and physical wellness throughout this workshop. And then as you write those things down, I want you to tap in a little bit, and we'll do this further throughout. But as we start to do this, I'd love to have you just kind of tap into how those emotions actually feel in your body. So sometimes we will have emotions start to actually have physical feelings in our bodies. That's why they're called feelings. So maybe if you're feeling sadness or grief, you might feel that as like a heaviness on your shoulders or on your heart, or a constriction, something like that. Maybe you're feeling more anxiety right now. And if that's the case, maybe you're feeling it in your head, maybe like a buzzing kind of feeling in your head. Maybe you're feeling a little bit of stress, and that could also be a feeling in your head, but it could also be, shaking in your hands, or, any other part of your body could be impacted by that as well. So then the next question I have is, what coping strategies have you used to deal with these emotions throughout your time during quarantine or during the pandemic in general, if you're not necessarily quarantined at home for the whole time? So we have different coping mechanisms. Some coping mechanisms are healthier in the long term than other coping mechanisms. So for example, exercise, or talking it out with a therapist, or some of the things that we'll talk about today, like healthy eating or relaxation techniques, things like social support or problem solving techniques. These are all things that are going to help you in the long term. So they're going to help you in the moment and then also in the long term. But then there are other coping mechanisms that are very common, very prevalent, that might be like emotional eating, or retail therapy, or procrastination, maybe sleeping too much or too little, maybe isolating yourself, maybe drug or alcohol use. So those are some coping strategies that have a place, but they're not necessarily going to give us optimal health in the long term. So instead of judging these things as like, this is good and this is bad, we can start to think about them as things that are either helping us or hurting us in the long term. And of course, in order for optimal wellness, we're going to want to do more of the things that are helping and less of the things that are going to be hurting us in the long term. And then the last question that I have for you before we get started is, what kind of wellness routines do you already have in place? So it's really great to leverage what we're already doing. Sometimes we're like, I have to do all of these things in order to feel better, or in order to get to the health that I want to have. But it's really great to actually start to think about what things we're already doing that are helping ourselves, and to really celebrate those things. So even if you don't feel like you have any wellness routines right now, you probably brush your teeth. And that's a wellness routine, and that's a positive thing that you're doing for yourself. Or maybe you go for walks, or maybe you, drink water, or maybe you garden or have plants in your house. And all of these things can help with our wellness. And we'll talk more about that as we go in. So just kind of identify what things you're already doing. And then as we go through the rest of this presentation and this workshop, I want you to just take note, and you can write it down or just make a mental note of it, and take note of whatever practices seem like they would be most beneficial for you, because we're going to go through a bunch of them, and I'll talk more about this later, but I don't want you to feel like you have to do all of the things. So you can just write down the ones that you're like, oh, this one would make a really big difference for me. Or this would be like really fun. This would be something I would actually really, really enjoy right now. So as we go through, just jot those things down. The very first thing that we can start doing for ourselves is to pay attention to how our bodies feel. So if we're not aware of how our bodies actually are feeling, then it's hard to give our bodies what they need. Often we have especially in our current society, we have kind of given our health, the power of our health, to outside sources. And, there's definitely a lot of good that comes of that, with knowing like nutrition and things to do for ourselves and that kind of thing. But the real authority here comes from ourselves. So we want to be paying attention to how our bodies are actually feeling when we're doing these different things. So as I go through this, I want you to be very, look at it with a critical lens of how it would actually impact your body. So maybe some things you take and some things you leave, and that's totally fine with me. But, taking time to feel into our physical sensations like hunger or satiation or thirst, or if something is too hot or too cold, like the temperature in a room, or even how our emotions feel in our bodies, that kind of thing. It's going to be really helpful to actually tap into those things so that we can then adjust for whatever it is that we need. And it seems very obvious, but a lot of times we override our body's signals, and then we end up needing to cope a lot more with things, with emotions and different things that are coming up for us. So before we move on, I would love to do a practice with you guys, if you guys are okay with that, just to kind of start to tune into our bodies and how they're feeling. So if you're comfortable, you can also go off of video if you're more comfortable with doing that, and then come back on. But we're just gonna close our eyes if you can, if you're in a place that you can do that, and maybe put your hands on your knees, and just take a deep breath in through your nose and then out through your mouth. And I'm just going to guide us through a little getting in tune with our bodies practice. So you can start with the top of your head and just feel into your sensations in your head. Maybe you have some tension in your face or your forehead, maybe in your cheekbones, down to your jaw. You might have tension in your tongue. You might want to release that. Or maybe you have any other types of sensations as well, and you can do what you need with that. Maybe scrunch up your face and let it go. You can feel into your neck and shoulders. A lot of us hold tension in our shoulders, especially if we're working on a computer. You can kind of allow yourself to release that tension. And then you can feel down into your arms and into your hands. And just notice if your hands are in a ball, like in fists, or if they are relaxed. Maybe they're facing upward or downward on your knees. And then you can feel down into your trunk, into your stomach. Maybe take a note of whether you feel like you're hungry, you're satiated, maybe you're just neutral. And then you can feel down into your legs. And maybe feel the seat underneath your legs and down to your toes. You can really start to maybe feel the earth underneath your feet. That can be really grounding to just notice your feet. Now that we've kind of briefly touched on the different parts of our body, just feel into whatever feelings are arising. Maybe you have tightness somewhere. Maybe you feel really relaxed. Just allow anything that is happening to just be totally fine. And then once you've kind of identified some of the different parts of your body and how they might feel, maybe there's some, you might have numbness, you might have, you know, shakiness, and all of it is fine. And once you do that, you can flutter your eyes back open, maybe come back onto the screen if you went off of the screen, and you can come back to us. And I'd love to hear, did anyone notice anything within their bodies that they maybe didn't notice before? Just opening up awareness helps them see.
Having to sit still like that really showed me the different areas where I may carry some of those stresses, or the different areas that were tighter that I probably don't notice throughout the day because I don't take the time to actually sit and focus.
Yeah, totally. And so a lot of times people talk about meditation and mindfulness and that kind of thing. And, you know, there are lots of different forms of mindfulness and everything. But I would say that the first step is to do this kind of thing, just like tapping into how our bodies are actually feeling, so that we can then make decisions based on that throughout the day, rather than just kind of going through the day and not really noticing what's happening in our bodies or our minds, that kind of thing. Yeah, awesome. So the next thing, yeah.
I just wanted to say during that, it just dawned on me that I have really been having short, like restrictive breathing. Like I literally breathed longer and, you know, inner and outer breaths during that. And it dawned on me, I think over the last few weeks, I've really had that constricted, like almost fear-based, you know, sympathetic nervous system type of response just in my breathing.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up, because that is actually a really common thing right now during this pandemic. It's actually become a very common thing where people are having shortness of breath, and that is definitely correlated with anxiety. Sometimes people are even having shortness of breath and convincing themselves that they have coronavirus because they feel like they're so short of breath. And so so that just starts to show us, like, even if we don't feel like we have the stress and anxiety that that maybe we think other people are having, it just starts to show us a little bit of like, okay, yeah, I am feeling some things that I may be repressing, or maybe I'm just kind of distracting myself from, and that's all okay. And these are some of the things that we can do as we go forward in this, to first start to notice, and then also to start to manage those things and move through them, so that we can then move forward with our day-to-day lives and digest those emotions.
And Lisa sent us a chat, and she said that she needs to give herself time to connect with nature. So she thought it was a really good exercise. And Jen said that, I realized that even if I think I'm slowing down and maybe sitting still, I need to be mindful to let go of my mind to my toes and really release her thoughts and her tensions.
Awesome. Yeah. Nature is huge too. We're gonna go into that. It's definitely very grounding. Awesome. So first habit that we can really start to implement in our lives is getting the sleep that we need, getting enough high quality sleep. So if you're waking up in the morning and not feeling well rested, and you're getting, you know, more than 7.5 hours of sleep, we might need to work on your quality of sleep. But, you know, getting enough sleep is the first step. We can't really make optimal decisions when we're sleep deprived. So if you've ever found that you didn't sleep enough the night before, and then you know, lay around all day, or like eat everything in sight all day, or, you know, do something that you know isn't going to make your body feel very good later, it's probably because you are sleep deprived. You know, we can't make optimal decisions when we're sleep deprived, and also our brains are always going to work better when we are well rested. And so our brains and our physical body as well. So the most beneficial thing that you can do during this time is to get enough sleep. It's the most beneficial thing that you can do for your mental health, and it's also the most beneficial thing that you can do for your immunity. So obviously immunity is really important right now as well. So getting enough sleep is really, really important. Lack of sleep is linked to not only lower immune function, but also chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, obesity, depression, all of these things. So getting at least 7.5 hours is really the goal here. And you're going to be able to do a lot more in less time throughout your day if you're actually getting enough sleep. So, you might be like, this is way easier said than done. I can't fall asleep at night, or I wake up a lot in the middle of the night. So some things that you might be able to do for that are to go to bed and get up at the same time each day. Having consistency in your sleep schedule is really, really helpful to be able to actually fall asleep. Keeping the bedroom quiet, dark, and at a comfortable temperature is also really helpful. Removing electronic devices from the bedroom is also incredibly, incredibly helpful. The blue light from our devices keeps us up. It basically suppresses our melatonin levels, and so we're then not able to fall asleep. And then also avoiding really large meals, caffeine, alcohol right before bedtime is going to help with sleep as well. And then another thing that we can do is to be active during the day, and that helps us fall asleep at night too, because our bodies are physically more tired. So that being said, the next thing that we can do for ourselves is to be intentional about moving our body. And moving our bodies right now has anyone experienced that's harder to do right now, that we're moving our bodies a little bit less? Yeah. So it's going to be more important right now than ever to actually be intentional about how we're doing that, because we're not walking around at our workplace, or maybe walking even to the car to go to our workplace. We might just be sitting in our house all day right now. And so intermittent movement throughout the day is going to be really helpful. Maybe that is just taking a lap around the house, or going for a walk outside. Or if you can't go outside, maybe it's doing some yoga inside, or having a dance party with your kids, or doing something that, the more playful you can get about it, honestly, the better, because it helps to break up some of that stagnant energy that you might be feeling, and it also gets us out of our heads with anxiety and any other mental health challenges that we have. Sometimes getting out of our heads can help us to get out of that space of going over and over things in our head. So it reduces stress, it improves immunity, it decreases general moodiness. If you find that you're irritable, or you have lots of ups and downs throughout your days. And then, of course, it increases our general happiness as well. So I would love to have you just jot down some things that sound fun to you right now, to intentionally get some blood flow going. Maybe it's yoga, maybe it's a dance party, maybe it is just taking a walk. What things sound really nice to you right now? Maybe it's just stretching in the morning. It's great to start the day with a little bit of movement too, even if it's just 10 push-ups or, a couple jumping jacks, something like that. And then the next thing that we can do is to really nourish our bodies well right now. And so I've been seeing lots of trends on social media and just in general with friends and other people that I've talked to about how hard it is right now. It's harder to eat healthier right now because we have food around all the time because we're at home. And also we are feeling, bored or stressed. And both of those things are really, really the two biggest things that induce emotional eating, I would say. And so it is going to be a little bit more challenging right now, but sticking to foods that are going to nourish our physical and mental health. And maybe you're thinking like, oh, I don't really need to eat healthy right now because, I am just going to get back on it after quarantine or whatever. But actually, eating what we eat directly impacts our physical health, of course, and then also it impacts our mental health. So sticking to foods that nourish our physical and mental health are going to be really helpful right now. So that's going to be like vegetables, fruit, foods that are not processed, basically like whole real foods is going to be really great right now. Foods with high omega-3 fatty acids like fish and olive oil, nuts, seeds, beans, whole grains, having probiotics is going to be really great. Probiotics are basically things like sauerkraut or yogurt with cultures in them, things like that. Those help our microbiome. So we have bacteria in our gut that is like healthy bacteria that helps our immune system and helps our mental health and helps our physical health as well. So things like probiotics are going to be healthy for us as well to be eating. And one more thing that I'll say about that is that I do hesitate to give food advice on what people should and shouldn't eat, just because sometimes we can tend to be really dogmatic about things. And so instead of staying away from like specific nutrients or like, okay, don't eat eggs because it has, saturated fat or cholesterol or that kind of thing, my recommendation is just to stick to as many real, whole, unprocessed foods as possible, and try to do it that way rather than being really dogmatic about like I can eat this and I can't eat this. And so being mindful of our food habits is also really important. So like I said, food can be challenging during this time, but instead of grazing throughout our day, scheduling in meals as much as we can be really helpful for that, so that we are eating at specific times. That's going to be helpful for not only our physical health, but also for our circadian rhythm, help us sleep better. It's going to help us to have better mental health, and it's going to help us to not be thinking about food all day long too. So then trying not to eat too late at night, like I said, is also going to help with sleep, which will also help with our mental health and will help us to feel more mental clarity in the morning so that we can make better decisions for ourselves.
Yes,
And then,
oops, sorry.
yeah.
We have lots of comments from the move section. For those of you that
okay.
For maybe some suggestions or what other people are doing. Jill says she's going for sanity walks daily that really help her mental and her physical health. Caitlin would love to be able to hike through the dunes. Amy has been doing walks with nature. Says they're very nourishing for her body. She's interested in maybe trying kickboxing, which I sound cool. And Marie says she's on the treadmill 4 to 5 mornings a week and doing Pilates 2 to 3 days a week. So good job, Marie, staying active. She also really likes to cook, so she's trying lots of new recipes, and could be
nice.
or bad, but
I love it. Yes, awesome. Yeah, those are some great ways to get moving. And the more we can incorporate movement with like nature too, that is awesome. I know some of the mornings have been snowing, so not always the most pleasant, but the more we can get out in nature, especially as we come into spring, the better for sure. So awesome. Thanks for sharing that, everyone. And then the last thing I'll say about food is to not overwhelm ourselves with food rules. So while it's really helpful to have nutrition knowledge and guidelines and things like that around how our bodies are going to really use food optimally, like I said at the beginning, we want to listen to our bodies with all of these things. So, instead of only eating the portion sizes that someone is telling us to do, tapping into our hunger and satiation cues is actually going to be more beneficial for our bodies. It's going to help us have a better relationship with food in the long term. And so just tapping into how does my body feel when I'm really hungry? And that's a whole nother I do a full presentation on that, and then I also do a full program with people on that. So if you want to talk more about that, I'll tell you how we can talk more about that as well. I don't want to go too deep into the food stuff because that is a big topic. So I'll just tell you that much for now. So the next thing that we can do for ourselves is focusing our attention on our breathing. So breathing, of course, we're all like, okay, yeah, I breathe all day, every day. But actually, using our breath can actually decrease the stress response in our body and also alleviate anxiety. It's actually it's actually the only physiological thing that has been proven to do in the moment to decrease our cortisol levels. And our cortisol levels, that means that our cortisol is our stress hormone. And so the higher our cortisol levels, usually the more stressed we are. And so that actually helps us to actively decrease our cortisol levels. So if you're feeling, really, really anxious or really stressed in a specific situation, this can be a really helpful thing for you to do. Of course, if you're in a really stressful situation that is inherently and immediately dangerous, just get out of that situation. But if you're in one that is mentally stressful but not necessarily dangerous, then you can do something like this. So I will, if it's cool with you guys, I would love to lead you in a breathing exercise here so that we can kind of practice it together and then take it out into the real world. So what we can do, we can kind of get back into the position that we were in before, where we put our hands on our knees, sit up straight, or you can stand doing this as well. And what we're going to do is the 4-7-8 technique. Dr. Weil does this, and basically what it is you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then breathe out for 8 seconds. So when we increase and extend our exhale longer than our inhale, that is the thing that promotes this parasympathetic or the rest and digest nervous system, and that is the thing that decreases our cortisol levels. So that's what we're going to do here. So you can just empty your lungs of air. You can maybe take a deep breath and then empty your lungs of air. And then you're going to breathe in through the nose for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then hold the breath for a count of 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then exhale forcefully through the mouth, making a whoosh sound like for 8 seconds. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to do it 2 more times. So breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath for 7 seconds. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then exhale through your mouth. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more time. Breathe in through the nose for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it doesn't really matter how you count it. You can see that the first time I counted up, the next time I counted down. You can do it either way. And you can repeat that cycle up to 4 times. You don't want to do it too many times because it can actually make you a little bit lightheaded if you aren't used to it. So that's why we did it 3 times. And you can do it up to 4 times if that feels good for you. And it can just really start to decrease the anxiety and the cortisol levels in your body. So the next thing that we can do for ourselves is to just ground down in nature. So that has come up a couple of times. So it sounds like everyone is pretty intuitive about this right now. Time spent in nature is actually linked to lower stress, better attention, so better able to focus. A lot of times if we're on screens all day, that can really make it so that we're not able to focus very well. It also helps our nervous systems to balance. And it also actually increases, it's linked to increased levels of cancer fighting cells. These are the quote unquote natural killer cells. And then also just is linked with the activation of neural pathways that are associated with decreased levels of anxiety and depression. So, and actually the phytoncides, is fancy word for kind of the compounds that are emitted from trees and plants, actually results in relaxation, stress reduction, and also enhanced immune function, which is fascinating. And there's some really cool research being done on that right now. So it's a great thing to do right now is to get out in nature, as long as you're not with a bunch of other people. And so this is another thing that I would love to ask you guys about. What is your favorite way to connect with nature? And maybe you can't leave your house right now. And if you can't leave your house right now, there are still things that you might be able to do to connect with nature. You know, like even just looking out your window at a tree or at, you know, the horizon can be really, really grounding for our nervous systems. Or if you have the ability to grow a plant, that can be really helpful as well. And then you will also have the phytoncides, which help with that too. So if you want to just put in the chat or speak up about your favorite ways to connect with nature, I'd love to hear it. And then maybe other people can get some ideas as well.
All right, it looks like we have a couple people in the chat. Take a hike at Coast Guard Park or a beach walk. And fresh flowers, having those inside your home. I know, you know, some of our flower shops have been really doing well to make sure we can have that. Sarah says she's been spending lots of time on their screened porch. Just being able to watch the deer and breathe in the fresh air. If it's nice outside, Caitlin says she moves her desk outdoors and works in the sunshine. That's really great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mallory says her partner, she says, my partner and I have been running at dusk when it's cool, when the sun is setting. Rob enjoys kayaking, and Marie is taking her coffee to the deck in the morning.
Love it. Yes. Awesome. Yeah. And it looks like, it sounds like people are being really, really intentional about this, which I love. And so going for walks, different things like that, is really great. And also some other things that is really, really helpful is even just sitting outside in nature and just noticing the birds, noticing the trees, that kind of thing. That can also help with having just more mindfulness in general, like we talked about at the beginning of the call. Being able to be mindful of what's happening in our bodies, and then also what we're sensing in our environment, is really helpful to be able to pick up on our own sensations in our bodies as well. So that is awesome. And then now that you've heard some different suggestions and stuff, I would love to have you write down what sounds exciting for you to do to connect with nature right now. Maybe it's something that someone else said, or something that sparked a new inspiration. Maybe it's walking around barefoot when it gets warmer on the grass. That's really grounding. It's really great for our nervous systems. Maybe it's just listening to the birds, or growing something in your house. Oh yeah, Jill says, open the window and hear birds chirping, stand outside on the front porch and smelling and hearing the rain today. I did the same thing. I didn't even know you did that, Mom. Yeah. I may go out and play in the rain. Yes. I love that. Yeah, and if you have kids too, it depends on the kid, but sometimes they will love playing in the rain, and it depends on the day, of course, too. but like splashing in puddles and stuff, so fun. So cool. So the other thing that we can do, especially right now while we are during this time, is scheduling screen time. So being inundated with information about coronavirus and, you know, everything that's going on in our world right now is not super helpful for our nervous systems or our physical health, really, even either, because our mental and physical health are totally interconnected. And so, of course, it's important for us to stay informed. I am not at all negating that fact, but scheduling your time to, you know, go on your phone or on the TV or your computer or whatever, to get your get your news, get your information for the day, or, you know, every other day or whatever it is you choose, can be really helpful to just do that and then have kind of a screen time detox for the rest of the day. It's hugely impactful for stress levels, and any anxiety that we might have. So, you know, maybe you set it for a specific time in the morning. Okay, I'm going to look at this stuff at this time, maybe from like 10 to 10:30 or 10 to 11, something like that. And then the rest of the day, I'm not going to stress myself out with the news, and that kind of thing. And again, we can still be informed while not being completely inundated. Has anyone been practicing that recently? Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people weren't practicing it at first and realized I need to schedule the time because otherwise it's just way too much. So that's awesome. And then the next thing that we can do is really to figure out a way to connect. So just because we are physically distant doesn't mean that we have to be socially distant. So I know that that's become a trend right now to talk about physical distancing instead of calling it social distancing, because it's really important. Like with movement, we are not having as much social interaction, not having quite as much movement. So it's important to be actually intentional about the interactions that we're getting. You know, just social isolation in general can lead to depression, anxiety, other mental health issues, and then also, of course, physical challenges as well, because we tend to have more stagnancy, and then our physical body isn't able to be as optimally healthy as well. So video chatting, phone calls, letter writing, things like that are great for this kind of thing. I would love to hear some of the fun things that you've done to connect with your friends, and you know, other fun things that people can do as well. My family, we've been doing themed nights on Fridays, which Courtney knows. We've been doing you know, like around the world kind of things. So that's been really fun. And then I've been connecting with some friends over video. There are some great apps for that as well. House Party lets you play games with friends on video chat. So if anyone has anything that they've been doing with their friends, I'd love to hear.
It sounds like quite a few people are taking advantage of Zoom and doing cocktail parties. Laura says she's doing themed Zoom parties with her family and friends. Lisa did a baby shower online. So lots of...
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. I know, it always makes my heart feel so happy when I hear about how people are connecting right now.
Laura says they had a hunker down hairdo themed Zoom. Laura, we would love to see photos.
Yes, that would be awesome. Oh, I love it. There's Some Good News, if anyone has heard of that, with John Krasinski. He's been doing a weekly video series about just the good things that are happening in the world right now, and it's super heartwarming, and it's different ways that people are connecting and stuff. It's really cool. Yeah, so even doing things with friends who you're like, if you have roommates or if you're with your family is great, but then also connecting with friends and family is awesome as well. And then the next thing that we can do is ask what we can do to help. I have a little bit of a delay with my screen, but asking what we can do to help. So I would love to have you write down what talents, skills or resources you have right now that you could use to help someone. Because the fastest path to feeling a sense of purpose and feeling gratitude is actually helping another person. So it might be sort of counterintuitive that we would focus outwardly. If we're not feeling great, a lot of times we just focus on how to make ourselves feel better, but that can get us, stuck in our own heads. And so the fastest path to actually getting out of our own heads, out of stress, out of anxiety, and into feeling more of a sense of purpose, into feeling more connection and gratitude is to help someone else. So love to see in the chat, what kinds of resources you could use that you have. Maybe it's something that you just really love to do, or maybe it's something that you used to love to do, but you haven't had the time for. Maybe you love painting and you could send paintings to your friends. Maybe it's sewing masks or sewing clothes or something. Maybe it's planning a Zoom party with your friend if you're really good at like planning things, or you love connecting with people. Planning a themed Zoom party sounds really cool. Or maybe you just really, really want to get out of your house right now, and so you go grocery shopping for someone who can't. Or maybe you send gifts, support local restaurants, small businesses with sending food to people, or cooking for people. A couple people said they really like cooking. Do we have anything in the chat, Courtney?
Yes, lots coming in through the chat.
Love it.
Yes, so a lot. Abby says she's sending notes to healthcare workers. I think I saw Caitlin say that she's been sewing masks and grocery bag holders for her friends and family. That is a skill I do not have. I wish I did. So Caitlin. Carla is gardening and cooking and reaching out and connecting. And she is helping people with their problem solving. She's a great problem solver, able to use that skill. Amy's focused on meditation and running errands for the elderly. Mallory's a therapist, so she has been doing something similar to this to help people with their own stresses. Laura has also been sewing masks for family, and she's been sending care packages that have games and foods and toilet paper, which is nice. Lisa said she recorded a song with her church choir members. Lots of different things people are doing during this time to help others and fill up their own cup too.
Awesome. I love it. Cool. Thanks everyone for sharing that stuff. And hopefully it inspires someone else who's on the call too. So as we go through all of these things, it's like, it might feel like, okay, well now I have so many things that I have to like cram into my day. But we also want to leave a little bit of space for ourselves. Even during quarantine, we need to take some time to do things simply for the sake of enjoyment. And remember that you are allowed to rest. A lot of people, like at the beginning of quarantine, thought that like by this point they would be fluent in another language, or they would be able to play an instrument, or they're like, I have so much time, I'm gonna do all of these things that I just have been wanting to do. And just give yourself a little bit of grace if all of that stuff hasn't happened, and start to celebrate some of the things that you have accomplished during quarantine. We are in a global pandemic, so it's not necessary that you are a superhero right now. And if you are, that is amazing. But while keeping busy with work and family and all the things that we want to be doing can be a top priority, making your body and mind, giving your body and mind a little bit of extra love and care right now is the highest priority for wellness in general. So, a lot of times we know what will be good for us, and we've like heard different tips and things like that, but then we just like get it into our heads that we have to do just only work, or we have to do like only family time, or whatever it is that we're experiencing right now. But then we end up feeling really depleted and not able to do the things that we need to do for ourselves. So those are some things that we can just kind of be mindful of, just to not overwhelm ourselves, and to also be kind to ourselves. So does anyone feel like they have a lot of, or a little bit of, negative self-talk? Does anyone have like an inner critic that's like, you can't do that, or there's I don't deserve that, or I'm not doing this right, different things like that? Anyone experience that? I know I have in the past. And so being able to be gentle with ourselves and be mindful of the language that we're using to speak to ourselves is really important right now. So, when we catch ourselves saying things like, you're not good enough at this, or you're not doing this well enough, or you're bad for eating that, or you're bad for not doing what you said you were going to do. Cutting ourselves a little bit of slack and giving ourselves grace is going to be really important, especially right now. So this is something that I work on a lot with my clients. The research shows that changing habits, or changing anything that we want to change in our lives, is less likely to change if we try to bully ourselves into it, or if we like berate ourselves into it. Actually encouraging ourselves into it is a lot more sustainable and a lot more effective in the first place to being able to get ourselves there. So if I can't convince you to be nice to yourself just by the grace of being nice to yourself and having more fun with that, if you actually really want to change things in yourself, maybe I can convince you to be nice to yourself, because it's more effective for habit change over time. So then along the lines of being kind to yourself, we can really acknowledge our feelings and notice whatever emotions are coming up and accept them for just what they are. Like we did at the beginning, feeling into the physical sensations that accompany the emotions, and really getting curious about those physical sensations are really helpful. And that's kind of along the lines of self-compassion as well. So ignoring our feelings does not, in fact, make them go away. It makes them a lot of times bigger and more scary seeming. And so the more that we can allow our feelings without judging them or wanting them to be different, the more we're going to be able to move through them, digest them, instead of holding on to them and having them become this big, scary thing that we are running away from. So one way to do that, like we did at the beginning, is to really focus in on the body sensations that accompany our feelings. So instead of getting too hung up on what the actual feeling is, sometimes it's really helpful to be able to acknowledge, okay, this is what this feeling is, and label it. But once you do that, feeling what's happening in your body can be really helpful as well. So identifying what's happening there, and then also moving it out of your body. Sometimes just like shaking it out can be really helpful, or doing a couple jumping jacks, something like that kind of dissipates the energy and helps you move through it. There's some really cool evidence for that as well. So a tool that we can use that Mallory might be able to speak to is RAIN. I know that a lot of my members in my Happy Healthy Habits program have come to me with this. They actually introduced me to this. I didn't know about it before. But recognize, allow, invest, and investigate and non-identification are that's what RAIN stands for, RAIN. So this is a helpful tool for being able to actually acknowledge our feelings. So we can kind of recognize, notice what's happening, turn toward our emotions with a feeling of acceptance, identify and label it, or acknowledge the physical sensations that are accompanying that emotion, and then allow the experience of that emotion to be there as it is. So actually, as I'm going through this, I would love to have you bring up an emotion that maybe you've been feeling recently, or maybe you felt this morning. maybe you felt yesterday, and just kind of bring that to mind. And then we can go through this with that specific emotion. That'll be more helpful. So once you've got that in mind, just really recognize that feeling and recognize where it's happening in your body. And then allow that experience to be there, as long as it's not too big of an emotion. I don't want to stress anyone out too much right now. And accept that the emotion is there without denying it, recognizing the impermanence of emotion. So even if it feels really overwhelming in the moment, you can recognize during the allowing stage to remember that it will soon pass. So for example, it might be like, I feel really overwhelmed, I feel like crying, I'm really uncomfortable, but I can also allow myself to actually feel this way. Or maybe you're really angry and you can allow yourself to feel that way for a little bit. Then the investigate part of that is investigate with kindness and get really curious about that feeling. Maybe you get curious about what triggered that emotion. Why do I feel this way right now? Without judging it, without being like, I shouldn't have this feeling. And then the next step of that is non-identification. So separating ourselves from the feeling. Remember that you are not your thoughts or emotions. So you are the person who is having the thought or emotion, but you are not that thought or emotion. And that can be really helpful, especially with stress and anxiety, to recognize, hey, I am not my stress or anxiety. I'm experiencing this right now, and that's okay. Did anyone have anything that came up there that they recognized that maybe they hadn't recognized before? Oh, we've got a couple people leaving. Okay, that's okay. We'll move on. So the last thing that I'll say is that we don't want to go overboard with any of these things. We don't want to try to do everything all at once. And maybe you're already doing some of these things, and that's awesome. So then let's identify some of the things that maybe would help in the future. So choosing a few modes of self-care that we just talked about, or a few of the things that we can incorporate that are going to make the biggest difference for us right now, or that we sense will make the biggest difference for us right now. We might have to experiment with that, is way more helpful than trying to be like, okay, now I have to do all of these things because I just went to this workshop and she told me I have to do all the things. I would just choose a couple of the things that you want to do, or maybe just one if that's all you can handle right now, and that is totally fine. So I'd love to have you write down 1, 2, or maybe 3 of the things that would be that you could work on right now. So those are on this slide, all the things we talked about. So maybe paying attention to how your body feels, maybe getting better sleep habits, maybe it's incorporating more movement throughout your day, maybe it's figuring out some better eating habits that'll make you feel better. Maybe it's incorporating breathing or grounding with nature. Maybe it's scheduling screen time or connecting with friends. Maybe it's figuring out something that would be really fun for you to do to help someone else right now. Maybe it's just noticing when you're not being kind to yourself and switching the mindset on that. Or maybe it's acknowledging your feelings and really you can use the RAIN technique, or you can just acknowledge how your feelings are coming up in your body. So who wants to share what they want to incorporate next?
Yeah, Carla, she kind of kicked it off in the chat. She says she's going to ground down with nature. She's going to incorporate more movement, and she's going to pay attention to her feelings. Laura says her 3 are breathe, schedule screen time, and focus on helping.
Awesome.
I wrote my 3 down. My 3 are I want to focus on being kind to myself. I want to establish better sleep and eating habits. And instead of watching my kids move, I want to get up with them.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Sarah says she's going to schedule screen time. She's going to nourish and she's going to breathe. Another comment says more movement, be kind to myself, and help. Lots in this group. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, cool. So the last little bit that I have here is just the fact that knowing these skills and practicing them are 2 different things. So if you need help actually putting these things into practice, that is the thing that I do with my clients. So if you are interested in talking about like how to actually implement those things, what next steps you need to take, I would love to chat with you. So the habits that you have right now, you already have habits established in your everyday life, and they're either helping you or hurting you, like we talked about at the beginning. So being able to work on the things and incorporate more things that are helping than the things that are hurting in the long term is going to be really, really helpful. So if you do want to talk through the habits you currently have versus the ones that you want to implement, either in quarantine or beyond that, or if you want to talk about your overall health and well-being, I do offer free health goals sessions. So if you want to talk and get clear on what it is that you want to experience in your day-to-day life in regards to your health and just in regards to what you're doing in your day-to-day life, your relationships, your body, your productivity, your energy, how you're spending your time and your money and all of that kind of thing. The health goals sessions are really helpful for gaining some clarity on that, and then also identifying next steps to help you get there. I really would love to do some one-on-one talking with you, because obviously these workshops are awesome, but we need to get a little bit more clear on what it is that you specifically need, because we're all different. So what's in a health goals call is that they're 30 minutes. We talk about your habits, your behaviors, how you're feeling, how you want to feel, and what you want to achieve next in your health and wellness, why it's important to you, and then of course the next steps from getting there. So the things that you're going to gain is just to get clear on your health goals, how you want to design your day-to-day life, gain more of a sense of control over your life, get clear on your values and priorities so that you can actually start living in that place, and then start making some sustainable changes. And then I also provide curated resources for you that are relevant to your challenges and interests once we have that session as well. So if you do want to do that, I will give the information to Courtney, and you can just sign up on my website, which is happyhealthyhadley.com/contact if you want to sign up for a health goals session. But if you want to get more like inspiration, different things like that, you can follow me on social media or sign up for my newsletter. I always love to spread the word on all of these things and give recipes and just like fun health tips and things like that too. So I am happy to do that. It's my joy. So either way, I would love to keep in touch with everyone. And that is all I have for you. If you have any questions.
Yes, and thank you all so much again for coming. We appreciate you being here, and we're very thankful to have Hadlee on this morning. She's a great resource, so we appreciate her time. If you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself, ask away. I'm watching the chat box too, so if you have, questions, feel free to post them there. It sounds like Hadlee, everyone is just very thankful for the information you shared today and, appreciative of your time.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Yeah. And if you, oh, thanks, Laura. And if you do have any questions that you maybe want to ask, just like one-on-one with me, we can just message me on any of my platforms or anything, and I'm happy to talk to you about that too.
Yes, and I will make sure to reach out to all of you via email and share Hadlee's contact information so you don't have to go searching for it. I will make sure you have that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been
Yes,
such a pleasure.
thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I hope to stay connected with all of you guys, and I hope that you're able to incorporate some of these wellness things for better wellness.
Yes. All right, everyone. We'll stay well, and thanks again, and we'll be in touch soon.
Awesome.
See ya.
Bye.